Good evening. My name's Teresa MacDonald, and I'm going to be doing the tasting for this Thursday night. Unfortunately, I can't be there live, so it's going to be pre-recorded, but I do hope you'll enjoy. I'm going to share my screen right now because I have a presentation to go with things. Dun, 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 share. And we'll start it here. So I'm doing this for the Opimian Wine Club. There we go. Okay, so I think we're in business. So what I thought I would do is I put together an agenda for the next half hour, and I thought since this is the first time that I'm doing this, that I would actually introduce myself. Then I will introduce the wine that we'll be tasting, and so tonight it's the Cinciano Chianti Classico. And I'm going to taste an older version of this, but there is a current version in the current offering. Then I thought I'd talk a little bit about the wine regions and wine classifications in Tuscany, just to put the wine in context. So a Chianti Classico is a wine from Tuscany, as I'm pretty sure we all know from this club, but I thought I'd talk a little bit about the wine regions and the wine classifications. Following that, I'm going to do the in-depth tasting of the wine. So we'll take a look at the wine, but I won't start with that quite yet. After I do an in-depth tasting of the wine, we'll discuss some of the other wines from Cinciano in this release. So we're tasting one, but there are actually half a dozen different wines in this release that I thought I would talk a little bit about. And then if there's time, because I only have half an hour and I do tend to prattle on, I thought I would touch base on some of the other Italian wines that are in the offering. Now, this particular offering, 276, has more than just Italian wines, but Italian wines are my focus tonight. So I thought I would keep it to the Italian wines that are in this offering. Now, questions. Because this is pre-recorded, I can't answer your questions right away, but I'm going to be covering a fair bit of material. So if you have questions, write them down as we go through, and at the end of this video I'll tell you how to reach me, and you can send me your questions and I will follow up with you. Okay, so that's my plan for the next half hour. I hope you're good with it. Sit back. I hope you have a glass of wine in hand, and so sit back and stay with me. Okay. So I mentioned I'm Teresa MacDonald. I'm actually the new Oakville, Burlington, Niagara area rep for Opimian. I'm going to be working with Sandra still. Sandra's kind of behind the scenes now, and I'm a little more active than I was before. But I'm absolutely thrilled, and I can't wait to meet folks from my area, not to mention folks from across the country. I think it's a great club, and I'm absolutely thrilled to be the area rep. I also happen to be an accredited sommelier. I graduated in 2008 from the International Sommelier Guild, so I love wine. I'm a member of the Canadian Association of Professional Sommeliers, and my background over the last 10 years, amongst other things, has been as an LCBO tasting coordinator, and a wine buyer for an Ontario wine agency. So I've been in the business since about 2008. When I'm not talking about wine or coordinating tastings or buying wines for people, it is my mission to travel to all of the different wine regions in the world at some point. So I've been to a few, certainly not near all of them, and I understand that a lot of the Opimian folks are world travelers as well. So I'm hoping I'll get to meet some of you on some of these travels. Anyway, I've been to across Canada, California, Arizona, so a little bit of Canada and the States. I'm fortunate to have family in Australia and New Zealand, so I'm back and forth to those two countries all the time. And I've spent a little bit of time in South Africa as well. Of course, you cannot be a Somm and not go to the classic countries, Italy, France, Spain, Portugal. So I've spent a fair bit of time in each of those countries. And lately I've been exploring Eastern Europe, so Hungary, Serbia, Romania, Croatia, because all kinds of exciting things are happening there. and and they're beautiful countries as well. So it's been very interesting visiting those places. I'm a wine educator, but the bottom line, and the reason I'm here tonight, is I am passionate about wine and food, and I love to talk about it. So that's who I am, and hopefully over the next few months, even virtually, I'll get to meet some of you folks. So the wine that I'm going to be tasting tonight is a 2013 Cinciano Chianti Classico. So in the Cellar offering, 276, lot 1870, and I think it's on page 16, but I'm not sure. There's a 2018 vintage of the same wine, and it's $35. Okay, so I'm going to taste the 2013. And I'll give you, I'll walk you through the tasting, and I'll give you my opinion of it. And then you will have the opportunity to buy it, a later version of it, from the current Cellar catalog. Okay, before I go into the detailed tasting, I thought I'd talk a little bit about the wine regions and wine classifications in Tuscany. And the reason I'm doing that is just to set some context for this particular wine. Okay, I always like to start with a map. So this is a map of Italy, and if you look through the catalog, you'll notice that there are Italian wines from a number of different areas. So if you look at this map, you'll see where Sicily is, Abruzzo. There are wines from a number of different areas. I think there might be some Campania as well. Anyway, you can take a look at this map if you want. And some of the wine regions are represented. The area that I would like to focus on tonight, because this is where our wine comes from, is Tuscany. So if we look at this area here, this is Tuscany. So there's some coastal area, there's inside area, and if you look down here, you'll see Rome. So typically you'd fly into Rome, and then Tuscany is about a 2-hour drive north of Rome. And the two major cities in Tuscany are Siena and Florence. So this is the Tuscan area that we're going to be talking about tonight. Okay? Okay, so here's a blow-up of Tuscany itself. And what I've done is identified some of, not 100%, not all of the different wines that are available in Tuscany, but some of the different classifications. And I thought I'd walk through them and explain some of them, and explain how to read an Italian wine bottle as well. So the first one is IGP Toscano. So what this means is the geographical area of Tuscany, or Toscano. And so if you see this on a label, on an Italian wine, it tells you that the grapes from this wine can come from anywhere at all in Tuscany. And typically, where you've got all this white area in the background, that's where these grapes will come from. Because if they come from, say, Bulgaria, this little area here, that's what it will say on the wine label. So if it says Toscano, it comes from anywhere, but typically all these white areas, and it could be a combination of grapes. It could be from multiple areas. You could have some from the top, some from here, depending on where people have their wineries. It's an entry-level wine typically. The grapes are from Tuscany, and they have no other special characteristics. That does not mean they don't taste good, but it's your entry-level, everyday wines, IGP Toscano. And it could be any grape at all. So typically, here they will let you know what the grapes are, or it will be a blend. So then we have Chianti. Okay, so we have Tuscany here as a whole, this whole great big thing. And then Chianti is a subset of Tuscany. So if we look here from Siena to Firenze, so Siena to Florence, and couple of little areas outside. That is the Chianti area. Okay. Whenever you see Chianti, you know that the main grape is Sangiovese. There may be some other grapes as well mixed into the wine. Could be white grapes, could be some international grapes like Merlot or Cabernet Sauvignon. That's allowed now. But you do know if it says Chianti, the grape is predominantly, if not 100%, Sangiovese. So that's your basic level Chianti. And then you have Chianti Classico. Okay, so again, Tuscany is this size. Chianti is a subset of that. And then Chianti Classico is a subset of that. So you've got a small region within the Chianti area that is considered Chianti Classico. And it was actually the original Chianti region. And they expanded the Chianti region. Sorry about that. They expanded the Chianti region, but the original region is called Chianti Classico, and it's still considered to have the best grapes within Chianti. So that's the Classico region, Sangiovese again, because it's still a Chianti. Then the next one, and our wine tonight that we're going to be tasting is in fact a Chianti Classico. The next wine is Chianti Classico Reserva, or the next classification. So Chianti Classico, we know that all the grapes come from this little area. And since they say Reserva, what they mean by Reserva is typically the winemaker thinks it's a better wine, but more importantly, it has been aged in oak for longer than the Chianti Classico. So there are rules around how long a Chianti Classico Reserva must be in oak, and it's longer than the Chianti Classico. And the importance of that is it's typically a stronger wine, and it will last longer. So typically the Chianti Classico Reserva, you can lay down for longer than a Chianti Classico. And the Reserva is probably going to be a little bit heavier bodied than the Chianti Classico. And you can tell that just by the classification. Now, of course, the wines vary from producer to producer, but in general, there are rules associated with each of the classifications. The last one, or the last one in this section, is the Chianti Classico Gran Selezione. So Chianti Classico Grand Selection. So the grapes come from the Chianti Classico region, for sure. So same region, but now they're saying this is the grand selection. So the winemaker is signaling, hey, this is our top wine. This is our top selection. And in order to call the wine this, it must have been aged. The wine must have been aged for at least 30 months in order to fit into this particular category. The grapes, so it's a Chianti Classico, so there's apt to be some Sangiovese, and it may be 100% Sangiovese, but there are also other grapes permitted as well, the international grapes. So Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, Cabernet Franc, and the Super Tuscans will fit into this category. So those that made some wines and they didn't follow the original traditional rules and they wanted to introduce some international grapes, these wines will fall into this category as well. So that's where your Super Tuscans are. The next section is a little bit different. So you've got something called a Chianti Rafina. So it's still Chianti, but Rafina is a little area over here. And the soil is a little bit different, or the elevation may be a little bit different, but there's something unique about this particular area that allows them to put that name on the bottle. And there are a few areas like that. So the Chianti Colli Senesi And Colli is hills, so the hills of Senese, the hills of Florence, etc., have their own designation. And so it's not a Chianti Classico, it's going to be outside of that area, but it's a distinct enough area that it warrants having its own name. Kind of cool. So there's those wines. And then lastly, I wanted to talk about how wines are named in Italy and how to read a wine bottle. So let's look at Vino Nobile di Montepulciano. Okay, there is a town of Montepulciano over here. By the way, Vino Nobile di Montepulciano, one of my favorite wines. I'm hoping to see some in a future offering. Anyway, Vino Nobile is the grape. Whenever you have something like this, something like this, it means this is the grape of that region. So Vino Nobile is actually Sangiovese, which is understandable, it's Tuscany, but it's a particular clone of Sangiovese that is only found in Montepulciano. So this is a Sangiovese clone called Vino Nobile in the town or the wine region of Montepulciano. So that's what we have here. Now, the other one that is like that is Brunello di Montalcino, and that's a town nearby. And Brunello is another clone of Sangiovese, only grown in the Montalcino town. So you have those two areas here. And lastly, I'm going to talk about Montepulciano d'Abruzzo. Okay. So with the Vino Nobile, that's the name of the grape in the town of Montepulciano. Well, Montepulciano is also a grape. So if we have Montepulciano d'Abruzzo, it's the grape of Montepulciano in the region of Abruzzo. Okay? Now Abruzzo is actually outside of Tuscany, so it's around this area here. But I thought it was worth noting because of the name sameness, Montepulciano. One is a town and the other is a grape. So now it's time to actually do the tasting. So I'm going to be tasting a 2013 Cinciano Chianti Classico. So if you look in your books, it's lot 1870, and the wine that's available is a 2018 at $35. So let's see if you can see this. So that's our bottle, Chianti Classico. And I have already poured a wee bit. So let's take a look at this. Can you see this? Okay, so I have it up against a white background. And even though it's a 2013, oh my goodness, it looks good. It's clear, it's healthy, and it's lighter around the rim. So it's not dark, it's lighter around the rim, which means it should be drinking now and maybe even into the future. So I'm going to do a bit of a swirl. And I'm really hoping you guys have some kind of wine, if not a Chianti Classico, but some kind of wine that you're sharing along with me. Ideally a Chianti Classico. Okay. Nice nose. Oh, I got some nice black cherry. Good fruit. Good strong red fruit. Some black cherry. Nice nose. A nice color, nice nose. Good acidity. And I always personally feel the acidity much more on the first couple of sips than I do later on, but great acidity, nice fruit flavors. This wine is not old at all. It'll last for a few more years yet. And nice long finish. I'm still tasting it. Okay, So I'm going to put that aside a wee bit. And just a note of trivia, the reason I take my glasses off when I'm tasting a wine is I've always found glasses sitting on my nose, pinch my nose a wee bit and inhibit the flavors when I'm smelling and tasting. So I may not be able to see, but I always take my glasses off when I'm smelling and tasting a wine. So if you haven't done it before, do try it, because I find it actually blocks the nasal passages just a wee bit. Anyway, nice wine, and we'll come back to that. The food pairings. So this is a nice big wine. It's not huge, but grilled steak is certainly not unreasonable to go with this. And roast pork or wild boar, which is a classic Tuscan meal, or cinghiale. Wild boar, beautiful with this wine. And again, good acidity. And then white truffles with pasta. So white truffles come from that area. This is a wine from the area, and it's robust enough to hold up to the white truffles. And also, of course, almost any of the Chiantis or Chianti Classicos work well with a good pasta dish. So spaghetti bolognese, something with meat, something with substance, not so much a light cream sauce, but a good food wine for anything with tomatoes, anything that's got good acidity in the dish. And this particular wine will hold up to grilled steak. And of course, one of my favorite dishes is cinghiale. Okay. So we talked about this particular wine and had a tasting, and I'll try it again in a few minutes because I like to leave it open for a while and see if it changes at all. But in the meantime, let's discuss some of the other wines from the Cinciano in this particular release. Okay. So we've got a Bianco IGP Toscana 2019. So first of all, we already know IGP Toscana means the grapes can come from anywhere at all in Tuscany. And, excuse me, they can come from anywhere at all in Tuscany. It's a 2019. In this particular case, it's a blend of Viognier, Chardonnay, and Sauvignon Blanc, and it's $24. So just a nice, easy drinking, pleasant wine to sip on. The wine that we were tasting, the Cinciano Chianti Classico, would actually fall in the second category here, and it's $35. And then we've got a Chianti Classico Reserva. And trust me, had I had one of those in our table plan or in our inventory, that's what I would have tasted for tonight. But the Chianti Classico is lovely. Anyway, can't wait to try this one. So the Chianti Classico Reserva just means there's more oak. In this particular case, the grapes were picked at a higher altitude. It will be a fuller bodied wine, slightly fuller bodied than the Chianti Classico, and it has more aging potential. So that's pretty good because this Chianti Classico is good for 10 years anyway. And if the Reserva is good for more than that, lovely. The best part is in the catalog, they talked about the food pairing being a bistecca alla Fiorentina. Well, that is one of my favorite dishes. And to me, it augured well for this particular wine because, so a Florentine steak, it's a very, very simple dish on the one hand, but it is the dish of Tuscany, comes from the area of Florence. It's a porterhouse steak. So part of it is a filet mignon and part of it is a New York, and it must be at least 1.25 inches thick. And it's cooked, the entire thing is cooked together on a grill, ideally, very high heat, rare to medium rare inside, seared on the outside, and then served family style. And the only spices really are salt and pepper. So it's a very, very simple dish, but the meat has to be really good. So a Chianti Classico Reserva and the bistecca, In fact, when my Chianti Classico Reserva comes in, that's what I'm going to cook with it. And I thought it was a perfect pairing suggested. The next wine, or the last wine that I'm going to talk about in the Cinciano wines, is they have a Gran Selezione, DOCG 2015. So first of all, you notice the years are getting lower and lower. So 2019, young, bright, white. 2017 or 2018 was the Chianti Classico. The Reserva is a 2017, and the Grand Selection is a 2015. So they have to be aged longer, so 30 months in this case. They're specially selected hand-picked grapes. This is a lay-down wine for sure. I probably wouldn't even drink it 2020. So when it comes in, let it rest, put it in your cellar, stabilize it, and drink the first one at least a couple of years from now, and right up until, what, 2025, 2027? Anyway, you have to taste them. And the pairing with this is an indication of what the wine's going to be like. Paired with roast lamb. That tells me it's a big, bold wine. So when I eat roast lamb, quite often I have a big, bold Aussie Shiraz with it. So lamb and Shiraz. So to have this particular wine being paired with a roast lamb, that tells me that's a big, bold wine. And we already know it's a lay-down wine, and the winemaker considers it a very special wine. So awesome. I am so looking forward to trying that one. So I said if there was time, and we're probably a little bit out of time, so if you want to skip this, you can, but I thought I'd touch on some of the other Italian wines in this offering. So these are all Italian wines, and there are more than Italian wines in the whole offering, but the first one is Lot 1883, Valdobbiano Prosecco Superior, DOCG. So $32 is a high price for a Prosecco, but I thought I would highlight this one because it is the one Prosecco that is worth it. So the Valdobbiani Prosecco Superior, excuse my pronunciation, is arguably the best Prosecco, or the best region for Prosecco in all of Italy. The DOCG indicates that it's not only a good region, good quality, but the G is to guarantee good quality. And this is arguably the best region for Prosecco. So it's a little fuller bodied, it has good bubbles, it's a solid wine. And if you're looking for an alternative to champagne or high-end sparkling, and you like Prosecco, this is the one to get. So in terms of white wines, actually, let me have a little sip of this red wine. I haven't had any for the last 15 minutes or so. Yep, glass is up. Yeah, nose is still good. Very nice. I love a wine that changes over the course of an evening. So you try a wine from the first few minutes, and for me, the acid always hits me first. If there's any sweetness, it hits me. The things that are just like right out there hit my mouth first. And then once the wine's opened up for a little while and it's sitting there, you start to taste some of the most subtle flavors. And the obvious things don't hit you quite as much after 15 minutes, half an hour. And an hour later, quite often different again. Anyway, but I digress. White wines. So we have 4 white wines that I thought I would highlight. First is a Pinot Grigio. Pinot Grigio from the Della Venezia region. So from around Venice. So grape of this region, a 2019 entry-level wine, Pinot Grigio. We all know Pinot Grigio. Good value, nice sipping wine for the summer. Suave, DOC, $19, lot 1874. Again, a nice, easy drinking wine, different grape. Suave is the region, and indigenous grapes, but a nice, just easy drinking white wine. Lot 1875, Verdicchio. Okay, so here we've got Verdicchio is the grape, and it's not de, but it's de Castelli. So this is the region. So Verdicchio of this region, and it's $19. And Verdicchio is a nice grape. It's an interesting grape. It's a good food grape, a little bit fuller bodied, I would say, than the Suave or the Pinot Grigio, and some nice characteristics. The last one. I will definitely be getting a case of this because all of my friends drink Orvieto. Orvieto is a town. So first of all, there's no grape de, so we know that Orvieto is a town. And it's a blend of indigenous grapes. Orvieto Superior, it's a DOC. It's, the town is great. If you're ever in the Tuscany region, you must go to Orvieto. It's a lovely town, a lovely wine. And I think in our case, it just brings back all kinds of memories, and we will enjoy drinking that. And it's $22. Red wines. Montepulciano d'Abruzzo, $15. Okay, so we talked about the Vino Nobile de Montepulciano, which would not be $15, but Montepulciano, the grape from Abruzzo. Nice, fresh, light, easy drinking, red wine, pizza, pasta, Monday night, Tuesday night wine. Then lot 1864 and 65, we have a Chianti Reserva and a Chianti Classico at $20 and $33. So not from the Cinciano winery, but from others. And I can't remember the page numbers, but you can look up the lots. So we have alternative Chianti Reservas and Classicos. And then, of course, we have a Chianti Classico Reserva, DOCG, guaranteed good quality, longer aging, Chianti Classico region, $47. Lastly, something a little bit different, we have two Barbera de Albas. So we already know that Barbera is the grape, de Alba, the region. So Barbera comes from the Piemonte region, where we get Amarone. It's not as big and bold as Amarone, but then it doesn't carry the price tag either. It's a better, well, I shouldn't say better. It's a good food wine. It's lighter, easier drinking. It's not going to overpower your foods. With an Amarone, you need something big and bold to eat with your Amarone. And it's got some very distinct flavors. The Barbera is a friendly wine. It's a food-friendly wine. And there are two of them in this lot. So lots of choices in terms of Italian wines in this offer. And lastly, how do you get in touch with me? If you have some questions, seriously, please send them to me. Next time I do this, hopefully I'll be live and we'll be able to answer questions right at the time. But if you have any questions about the wines, the presentation, whatever, you can reach me at oakville@opimian.ca. And you're even welcome to call me, 905-616-8159. Please, please get in touch anytime. And I'd just like to say cheers, salute, santé, good night. Take care. Bye-bye.